Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, love, life, dating, relationships, and all things asexual. So that sounds like something you're interested in. Please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon now. So, have you ever felt really frustrated that you want an asexual relationship, but everyone that you like seems to be across the globe and not actually in your own country or in your own town or city, and you're just so frustrated by this, and you're thinking, what is the solution? Have you ever been in a situation where maybe you have loved someone in another country and you're like thinking, should I move or should I not move? And you've got to weigh up the pros and cons. If so, this video is for you. But first of all, if you don't know who I am Sandra Bellamy, author of this awesome Asexual Perspectives 47 Asexual Stories book. This is all about love, life, and sex from an asexual point of view. So grab your copy of this on Amazon. So yes, it can be really, really frustrating if you're trying to find an asexual relationship. And I have to let you know that if you do want an asexual relationship, usually there's going to have to be some traveling involved, and someone is going to usually have to relocate at some point. There's not that many times that someone who is also asexual and the same type of asexual as you, who has the same needs, likes, wants, and dislikes, or very similar, it's very unlikely that those people, that person is going to turn up on your doorstep. It can happen, but it's very unlikely. Usually one person in the relationship, if it's monogamous, there's just two people. If it's polyamorous, there's more. But usually there's one person that's going to have to move towards the other person, right? So the harsh reality and truth is that if you really, really want an asexual relationship, either you have got to move or they have got to move. And people don't want to hear this. People just want to obviously keep trying to find someone near them, and it's not usually going to happen. I'm not saying it can't happen. There are rare circumstances where it does happen, but we're recorded 1% of the population, right? So this is 1 in every 100 people you meet is likely to be asexual, which is a great thing. But if you think about the fact that most asexuals are aromantic, or aromantic as I like to call them, aromantic lack romantic attraction as well as sexual attraction. A lot of aromantic people, they don't want relationships. And if they do, they don't want them of a romantic nature. Romantic asexuals, such as myself, which is a heteromantic, there are less of us. And traditionally, there are more women asexuals than there are guys. So if you're a woman looking for a guy asexual, you're a woman asexual yourself, heteromantic like I am looking for a guy, it is even more difficult because there's less guys. And if you think that there's still more aromantic guys, then that makes it even harder. So the reality of the situation is, the harsh reality, if you like, is the fact that usually you're going to have to move for a relationship, or someone is going to have to move for you. If you don't want to be on your own at the end of your life, if you don't want to be lonely, if you actually want someone who's most likely to be highly compatible with you and you want a natural relationship. So if, for example, you see a lot of your friends being paired up and going off and getting married and having kids, but you don't want kids, maybe you don't even want marriage, but you just want someone. You want an asexual person that understands you, that feels the same way you do, that you can have something beautiful with. Then one of you usually is going to have to move. And so you really need to be considering this, right? I have always said I am a non-mover. But obviously, there is always this thing in my mind that it might be that I would have to move, but I don't want to move outside the UK. And I really love living in my city, and I have a lot of health needs, which I'm sure some of you do as well, where you need to stay where you are. I have very good healthcare in my city. At the moment, I'm losing my home because my landlord's selling. So the irony is I have to move anyway somewhere. I want to stay in my city, but I don't know what's happening to me because I have no home to go to at the moment. So, but there's a lot of reasons why I do want to stay here. I do have an asexual close friend who lives in my city now. They're not heteromantic. They're not male. They're female. So they're not suitable for me romantically. But I do actually have someone living in my city. So it's not impossible to find someone. But the point is that if you do find someone in your city or town or where you live, usually they're not going to be the same type of asexual as you, or the same type that you're looking for. I'm not attracted to women. I can't be in a relationship with a woman. They're attracted to guys. I'm attracted to guys. So, clearly we're amazing close friends, but we're not ever going to be romantically attracted to each other. And they don't experience romantic attraction like I do anyway. It's very infrequent. So, and to guys, like I am attracted to guys. So, you know, this is my point, So you always have to think like if years later you have to really strongly consider moving, if not now, because at the end of the day, you have to work out what's most important to you. How much do you prioritize a relationship in your life? How important is it that you find the actual special person, the special asexual person you want to spend the rest of your life with? You have to decide how important that is for you. So the first step in thinking about moving or relocating is how high a priority is it for you to be in an asexual relationship? As opposed to basically being on your own. Like you have to understand you should never ever get into a relationship because you're lonely or on your own. That's not the right reason to get into a relationship. You need to be thinking about if you want to get into a relationship because you literally want to take care of someone. You want to love someone. You want to spend time with them. You want to date them, talk to them, kiss them, cuddle them, or whatever you want to do. Everyone's got different needs. And that's one of my main points is everyone's got different needs. So even if someone lives near you, they might be completely incompatible with you. And even I was having a conversation with one of my asexual friends who lives in another country, and even he was saying that most of the people that have been attracted to him and wanted a relationship with him in the past have been people in another country. And so, most people are gonna have to shift their bar and go, right? And if everyone is completely stubborn or completely non-mover, then no one ends up in a relationship, usually, very rarely. And so you've got a choice. You have always got a choice in life. You can stay where you are in the same situation, or you can move and change your mind. And so, that includes everyone. It includes obviously telling myself that as well. But you've got to weigh up everything. So you've got to understand how big or how much do you want to actually move? Like, how big a desire is that for you personally? If it's not a big desire for you personally, it's not really going to work. You've got to know why you want it. So how badly do you want to move for a well, you don't want to move, I know, but how badly do you want a relationship? And is that worth moving for? So just suppose like 10, 15, 20 years passed and you like end up getting on with really well with someone in another country, but you would never move. If you did move, what would happen? Would you have the best time in your life? Would you be happily ever after? Would you get the relationship you want, but just because you wouldn't move, you don't get it? Right? So you have to consider this. You have to think, what do I really want? Because obviously, a lot of friends, if they're not asexual in particular, will often get married and have kids and have a life of their own, and you'll be left somewhat on your own. If you've got lots of asexual friends, I've got quite a lot of asexual friends, then it's not going to be so bad because usually asexuals stick together more. But everyone who gets a partner ends up spending a lot more time with them. So there's always going to be some time when they're not going to be spending as much time with you as they used to. That's a given. So you've got to work out like how badly do you want a relationship and why do you want it? Obviously, if you're a person that's not really into relationships, that's not going to really apply to you because you're going to be like, well, I'd rather stay single. There's nothing wrong with staying single. Single is beautiful. I do love being single. I do love like doing what I like when I like, and enjoying my life. That is a really big thing for me and a really big deal. And life is a big adventure, isn't it? So, there's a lot of good things in life. And sometimes we do have to take risks. So if you really want a relationship and you feel in your heart of hearts you should be in a relationship and that's what you want, you're gonna have to look at different options. You're gonna have to look at different things. So say you got to the stage where you're thinking, okay, I've spent like the last 10, 15 years saying I'm never going to move. And actually, maybe my soulmate is like in another city, in another town, in another country. And I can sit here moaning saying, oh, I'm never going to meet the person, or I can actually move myself, or choose to move, or do something different, right? Which would be moving or traveling or doing something. And so you have to like know that this is a possibility. Everyone has choices in life, and we can choose to go down different paths. We can choose to, okay, I'll stay where I am and I'll just stay here forever. But is that going to get you the relationship you want if you actually want to be in a relationship? Because if you really do want to be in a relationship, you have to do something about it. But you have to find someone else who equally wants to do something about it. If the other person's not prepared to put the time, energy, effort into it and really want it badly, it's never going to happen. So, first of all, how much do you want to be in a relationship? How much of a priority is it for you? Is it held in high regard by you? Or is it just like something you might like to do one day? And why do you want to do it? Is it because that you're lonely, which is not a good reason to get in a relationship? Or is it because you genuinely want a connection with someone? You want to be there for each other. You want to work as a team. You want to build something, a life together. And you just want to have the experience, but probably without the sex if you're a sex repulsed asexual, or less sex if you're, on the grey asexual sphere. So you've got to really decide how much you want it and why you want it, right? So if you decide, like, I really want a relationship, it's really high up my priority list, it's important I find the right person before I die, it's important that I find the relationship I desire and be happy, that is a huge priority for me. Then you have to decide what action steps you would take next in order to get the relationship of your dreams, right? So the next stage would be saying, okay, you're thinking, like, now that you're considering relocating, moving, right? You then have to ask yourself the question, would that be in relocating to a different part in your city, different part in your town? Would it be relocating to X amount of miles away? Would it be relocating anywhere in the country? I have to say that I think it's ridiculous if someone's like, oh, well, I'm prepared to go such and such a distance, but an extra half hour I can't be bothered with, right? If that's your attitude, then don't even bother getting into a relationship, right? Because you have to be prepared to go as far as you can. Like, for example, like, I know I can go to London and back. Manchester would be absolutely, really horrendously difficult for me to get to where I live. I've looked at it, like, I can only be there for like less than 2 hours usually, or you have to like spend money overnight, and like the train fare is like £200 a month, right? But all I know, my soulmate could be in Manchester as far as I know. So I've got to hope he's got a car, really. Or like, you've just got to think about moving. So at the end of the day, you need to consider how much you want it, why you want it, and where you would consider relocating. Like, even if it's just like half an hour more or half an hour more traveling for now, this type of thing, right? You've got to be willing to travel to find someone for a relationship. You can't just think that someone's going to turn up on your doorstep. It isn't going to work like that. You should be going to asexual meetups as well. If you are looking for a relationship and you're serious about it, you should be going to asexual meetups. You shouldn't be saying, oh, every asexual meetup is too far away from me, I can never go because I can't leave my town or my city or anything. You're not going to get a relationship like that. You have to be prepared to travel to a certain extent, like travel to some other towns and some other cities for asexual meetups, because you are more likely to meet someone suitable for your asexual meetup than you are in your city trying to find someone, if you're sex repulsed, for example, who's going to be compatible with you. Doesn't mean to say it can't happen, but it's less likely if you're sex repulsed. If you're more sex flexible, then, it won't be so difficult. But it'll still be more difficult if they want regular sex 3 times a week and you're not up for that, right? So anyway, so then you got, like I said, you got to decide, like, what range would you be willing to relocate in, and would you be willing to move countries for a relationship? Now, obviously, you've got to take lots of things into consideration when you're thinking about this. You don't want to go into it blindly, so you've got to ask yourself, like, what are the advantages of me staying where I am now versus moving, right? If you've got loads of family, if you've got loads of friends, you've got a supportive network around you, you've got the ideal job, then you're probably going to be thinking, well, there isn't much point in moving. And you'd have a point, right? Because if you've got everything you ever want in there, that's fine. But if you ask yourself, okay, so if it comes to the fact that I'm 20 years down the line and like, maybe your part of your family's died off, maybe some of your friends have moved away, and then you're like, and maybe some of your other friends have got married, and you're like actually living by yourself, and you're thinking, oh, right, okay, now I'm in a position where I'm not actually happy because, like, I haven't got the loved ones here that I did have before, and my friends have, like, disappeared or gone away, and, like, I'm on my own now, right? So you've got to think about the short term and the long term. but you also don't want to be so isolated from your family that you go to move to a completely another country and then you just feel cut off and you're really upset and miserable. That's also not a good idea. So you have to work out what you're willing to do, right? Some people do like traveling. Some people don't want to stay in their country. If you're the type of person that doesn't like their country, that doesn't want to stay in their country, that knows that they want to move, then, you should be thinking about moving. But you shouldn't like just move into a home with someone you don't know. So if you found someone that you're interested in online, for example, you should video chat with them, audio call them, get to know them in text messaging, and also work out from the beginning where it'd be possible for you to relocate. There's absolutely no point in pursuing a relationship for, with someone in another country if you're not actually even prepared to move to that country, or they're not, because it's just wasting each other's time. It's going to cause heartache and pain. It's going to be very frustrating and sad, and it's just going to be ridiculously painful for both of you. So it's much better to just understand where you can move. And if you want to move, that's one thing, but to be able to move is another. So you should be looking up beforehand, where could you actually physically move to? How much money would you need to move there? What type of job would you have to have? What type of accommodation would you need? You should not rely on the other person in the other country to provide you with a job, food, and accommodation, because that's not how it works. Usually, to get into any country, you have to have the appropriate visa. This has got nothing to do with the person that you're in a relationship with. It's got everything to do with the government of that country. So, for example, if someone wanted to come to UK, they would have to go on the gov.uk website and, for example, look at through all the sponsorship jobs. There's like sometimes 3,000 jobs on there, sponsorship jobs in the UK, but it requires hard work, like you trawling through all the job vacancies and actually applying yourself. This is not up to the person who you're interested in getting into a relationship with to do for you. This is up to you to do on your own. And to like, obviously, you can ask them, like, do they know anything about the companies you're applying for? Do they know anything about the organization, like what they're like to work for example? That's perfectly fine. But actually asking someone to do your work for you is not. You should not be asking anyone to marry you for a visa either. You shouldn't be doing stuff like that, right? This is not the way to go out actually moving, right? If you move to another country, you should not move there until you've visited the country first and visited the person first, because people can get on really well online, but when it comes to being in person, they might not get on at all. Online is like very like unrealistic compared to life when you've got to live and breathe that person. The person should spend a couple of weeks holiday with you, come to your country. If they're thinking about relocating, then they should spend day in, day out with you for at least a couple of weeks, if not a month. And then you'll know if you get on each other's nerves and you can't stand each other, or you're really more and more comfortable with each other. And this is going to be difficult because, if they haven't got a spare room, which you shouldn't assume that they have, and you shouldn't assume you can stay there, then you'd have to find a way of having accommodation there without actually intruding on them or being in their home. Because, asexuals, for example, the sex repulsed, they might not want someone in their home. And it's very rude to just expect someone to have you in their home, right? So you need to be working out, like, okay, just imagine you got into a relationship with someone and it was in your country that you're thinking about moving abroad. You should already be looking at what accommodation would you need to stay there, how much money would you need to even go for a holiday there, what destinations would you go to there, and like, where would you stay, what would you do, and like, explore places in another country, like find out for yourself, like type in accommodation, for example, in Scotland, type in accommodation in France, type in like jobs in France, jobs in Wales, jobs in Spain, jobs in Germany, wherever you want to go, and you should be actually looking for jobs and accommodation there. So obviously, like, treat as if you're going to move of your own accord, which is what you should be doing. Like, there's plenty of people who come to UK, for example, they find their own accommodation. For example, they're a student, they find their own accommodation, they find their own they get the money together to, or have a loan or sponsorship to come to the institution for education. And they have to get their own accommodation, everything. They don't go around and say, hey, can you do this for me? This is not how it works in life. This is not good karma. So you have to know that you have to be prepared to go out there to the other person's country, and it's better if you find accommodation your own while you're staying there, right? In case something goes wrong. I never ever move to someone's country just like that, because you need to safeguard yourself. I know people on asexuality.com, they went and moved for a relationship and they just moved to whole countries and moved in with the person. It was an absolute disaster because the people weren't who they said they were. One person was just looking for a mother for their kids and looking for money to spend on them, and this is ridiculous. So please, please, please be careful and aware that there are loads of scammers online. There are people that aren't who they appear to be. There are people who, like, 1 minute will seem lovey-dovey towards you, the next minute they've gone out of your life. And, you've really got to spend some quality time with this person or people, getting to know them and finding out more about them, and then meeting up with them as a friend maybe, or, like a dating scenario, but where it's very much no pressure. Um, and so, that you are safe. Your safety is the most important thing. If you feel that you don't want to move out of your country, then you need to be looking at other areas within your country, like where would you go? How far would you go? And you might have to keep expanding that until you get the right person. But love is worth it sometimes. And if it's true love and not toxic love, if it's toxic love, it's no good. Because toxic love means you'll get into a situation where you'll move in with someone and they'll be abusive and you can't leave them because you're tied to them financially. You do not want that situation going on. So you need to make sure that if you move, you have your own accommodation, your own job, and your own money. So if the things go wrong, you are not left stranded, right? Do not go and move in with anyone, because if you do, then they could financially hold you there. If they're paying all the bills and you've got no money of your own, they financially could control you. And this is what some abusive people do. I've been in a situation a very long time ago. By the same token, you shouldn't expect anyone to pay for your way. Why should you expect a partner to pay for you moving over the country? It's your choice if you move. It's not, if you decide to move countries, you can't go around blaming them. So you need to be consciously aware of why you're choosing to do that. If you do choose to do that, it has to come from your heart, your mind, and what you really want. And if you, like I said, you need to actually find out the visas, like what visa do you need, or visas do you need? How do you go about getting them? How much do they cost? How long is it going to take to get the visa? You need to be asking yourself all these questions so that you're informed before you even think about getting into a relationship, really. But if you do come across someone that you really like in another country, then check all their country out. Check out how you would get there before you start getting involved with them, before you start getting romantically attached to them. Because if you get romantically attached to someone and they're in another country that you can't even move to, and you haven't even looked into it, it's going to be a very tricky, difficult situation, especially if you're both attached. So it's much better to, say you meet someone in an asexual dating group and you see that they're in a completely another country. Say they're in France, right? So your thing would be, okay, I've seen this person, I really like them, but I'm living in like America and they live in France. Like, I don't know if they'd move or not, but if you can't, you'd have to consider moving. Then you need to think, okay, so what would I need if I want to move to France? What type of visa would I need? Could I just be on a like, what type of visa would I need to get there? Like a lot of countries, for example, if you go on a tourist visa, you can't work. You can't expect the other person who you're interested in a relationship to just put you up and pay for stuff for you, especially when they don't even know you. Right, and it's taking advantage of them. So you need to be looking at the countries like France. If you're living in America, like how long could you stay in France for? What type of job could you get there? Could you get a job transfer? So, for example, a lot of companies, they do have other branches in other countries, and those should be your first point of call. Like if you're already doing a job and your company has branches elsewhere or subsidiary branches, you should be then asking, like saying, hey, I'm really interested in moving to this other country. I've worked for you for a while now. Like, what internal vacancies are there elsewhere? Or what vacancies are there within the company elsewhere? Because, I really would love to move, and I'm keen to explore the idea of where other branches are and because with a view to maybe moving. Or you don't even have to say anything to your employer and just go on the internet and look up your actual branches and find out if there's vacancies in another country with them, right? If you've already got a company that's in another city or in another country, you're much more able to move easily because they'll do inter-branch transfers and stuff like that. People do it all the time in the UK. They transfer, for example, Tesco is a supermarket in the UK. They might be in Tesco in my city, then transfer to a Tesco in London. Students do this quite a lot if they go from one university to another. They might work in Sainsbury's supermarket, for example, then decide, oh, but they want to, move universities to finish their degree off. So they will then get a transfer from one part of the country to another part of the country. So if you are already in a company that has branches in the other country you want to move to, that should be your first point of call. You should be going and saying to them, hey, I'm interested in moving. Like, you can say it's for a relationship because obviously then they know it's not just for the hell of it. Or you could, or even if it's not for a relationship, you could just say, like, I really want to move countries. I really want to love this country. I've been thinking about it for a while. Like, what are my options? Like, where are the branches? What vacancies do they have? How do I find out about them? But use your noggin, use your brain. Like, go on the internet and Google. Like, if you want to move to France, what jobs are in France? If you want to move to Lille in France, a particular area, what jobs are in Lille in France? And try and find all the jobs boards with that are in Lille in France, and then go and find out the accommodation there. Like, how many bedrooms do they have? Like, what taxes do they pay? Like, what's the wages like? What do you have ground rents to pay on the properties? Do you have healthcare to pay for on top of it? You can find out a lot of information on the internet, and then you can ask people like what their opinions and things. Join groups on Facebook that are in the country that you want to move to. So if you want to move to France, then you look for groups about France. If you want to move to the UK, you look for groups that tell you all about UK. For example, I'm in quite a few Indian groups in the UK. A lot of them are used for Indian people who want to move to the UK. They go in there and they ask them if there's anyone with specific types of jobs. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. Certain jobs are more easy to get than others. Right? But like I said, on the gov.uk website, there's thousands of sponsorship jobs. If you're lazy and you can't be bothered to even look at sponsorship jobs, then obviously you're not serious about moving. A person who is serious about moving anywhere will be proactive. I've known guys who've come to UK who do live abroad, and they have like done up to 3 jobs just to get enough money to pay to come to UK, because that's how badly they want to come to UK. They love it here. It's freedom to them in some ways, or it's got the course they want, the degree they want, and they'll do absolutely anything to get it. And sometimes they'll do a job in the week, then they'll do a job in the evening or job at the weekends if they got 9 to 5 in the week, and they'll do whatever it takes to get all the money together to come to the UK because it means that much to them. So, you've got to ask yourself, if you find someone abroad that you really like, how much do you want to be with that person? Do you think you'd be truly happy with that person? Do you think they'd really love you and you'd really love them? And how would that work on a day-to-day basis? Like, you can't just expect to move in with someone. Like, for example, I have single occupancy only in my flat. And if I move, I'll be single occupancy again. Usually, it's always single occupancy. And I'm legally not allowed to have someone else come live with me. Right? And so, like, you can't just expect someone go and live with someone in another country. You have to be able to have a job, right, to pay your way. You have to be able to have the right visa to stay there legally. There's a lot of information complication. Like, my friend Debbie, she moved with her partner from the UK to Turkey, but they had to like look at different types of phones. It's a completely different phone tariff, like obviously different currency, different language, where they got taxes to pay out there, all the type of things. But she moved with a partner to there. I mean, you might find that you find someone and you can both move to a new country together and start together, but that is really scary, because if you both give up everything around you, then that could be even more scary, but it could be work out well as well. But you've got to have a plan, like, and you've got to know how badly you want a relationship. If you're like, well, I'm not bothered whether I meet someone or not. If I end up in a relationship, I end up. If I don't, I'm fine. I can spend the rest of my years alone, and I really don't care. I'm quite happy doing that. Then it doesn't matter, does it? It's not a priority of yours. I hold a relationship quite high in priority in my life. Not the most priority thing at the moment, but I do hold it in quite like high regard, because it's kind of what I've always wanted, a really serious, committed, romantic relationship with the right guy. But having said that, I do really love my single life, and I haven't met the right guy anyway yet. So, it's really difficult, but you've got to understand that as well. There are people that scam people abroad. Like I said earlier, there's some people that just want you for money, want you for a visa for marriage, want you to look after their kids, want you to do money laundering or some rubbish like that. So you'll be very, very careful. People online aren't who they always say they are. They could give you a certain type of picture of their life when really they're married with kids and they've pretended they're single the whole time. So, always, if you're thinking about moving countries, don't just do it for the person that you think that you're with or that you're attracted to, because if they turn out not to be the person you think they are, you're going to be hugely disappointed and very stuck in life. So it's much better if you can think beforehand, what countries would you like to move to? If you know already you wouldn't like to move to another country, then don't get involved with someone from another country. Don't put yourself in that position. Don't get involved with someone, because it's hurtful for them and it's hurtful for you. Right? So to recap then, you need to know how much you want a relationship, how badly do you want it, why do you want it? You have to think of the short term, right? What am I doing now? But where do I want to be in years to come? Because you have to know that some of your family is probably not going to be here in X amount of years. It's sad but true. You have to understand that. And also friends can move away, things can change. So you've got to do things for yourself that make you happy as well. Right? Then you need to think, okay, so where would I be prepared to move or relocate to, even if you haven't considered that before? Like, what different towns, what different cities, where in the country would you be prepared to go for a relationship? Because if you're currently like looking for a relationship frantically around your home and you haven't found it for years, it's likely going to be somewhere else you're going to find it. So take all that into consideration, and then if you're thinking about moving, don't just move. Visit the country first, but find out all about the country, the jobs, the lifestyle, what visa requirements you need, accommodation, like vacancies. Like for example, in the UK, without marriage, which you should never get married for a visa, then the way to come into the UK, for example, is to study in this country, or to get sponsorship, or to get jobs transfer. Those are basically 3 ways to get into the country in the UK without marriage. And I don't believe anyone should use someone for a visa to get into the country. I think it's disgusting. And a guy should not be asking a woman to give him a job, and you know if people are working for an employer, they can't give you a job anyway because they're employed by someone. If people aren't working at all, they can't get you a job because they're not working. And benefits are affected. So for example, in the UK, if you live on your own, you get like 25% discount for single occupancy of your council tax. If you move in as a couple, you've got the full amount to pay. And so you can't just have someone move in with you just like that anyway, right? And you can't expect to move in with someone and expect them to pay for your keep. It's not right. And legally, like, if you're on a single tenancy, you can't have that. You're not allowed to in the UK, breaking the law, and then you're both going to be on the streets. So you've really got to consider all the things that could happen and what you really want and why you want it. And only if the pain of staying the same and in the same situation you're in now and not finding the love of your life is greater than moving and find the love of your life, will you actually move? Right? And so if you've been trying for years to find the right place and you can't find them, you find the ideal person abroad, then maybe you need to consider moving abroad. Or at least, like, try and find someone who wants to move to you. Because it's so important, but in the end, you're going to have to consider moving yourself, because if you keep doing the same thing, you keep getting the same results over and over again, something's got to give and change, right? And sometimes it has to be you or your circumstances. So anyway, I hope you found this video useful, helpful, insight. If you have, please pop an emoji down below, pop a comment, love to know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and hit that bell icon so you never ever miss an episode. I'll see you soon on the next video live stream. Lots of love. Bye.